Greetings and welcome to another episode of Cataloging the Culture. I'm your host, Dr. Karlos L. Marshall, here with the Dayton Metro Library. This podcast seeks to highlight and uplift Black men in libraries across the country by bringing forward and elevating their unique stories, journeys, as well as trials, tribulations, and triumphs within a profession where we remain highly underrepresented. Today, I have the honor and privilege to be joined by Sammie Johnson, who is a dedicated library leader, educator, and advocate for equity in higher education. He currently serves as Director of Library Services at Wilberforce University, where he's committed to creating inclusive, innovative spaces that support student success. With a background in social work and a Master of Library Science from Texas Woman's University, Sammie brings a unique blend of leadership, community engagement, and strategic vision to his work. Passionate about mentoring and uplifting underrepresented voices, Sammie is especially focused on the experiences of Black professionals navigating librarianship in predominantly white institutions. How you feeling this morning, brother?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here with us at the main library at the Dayton Metro Library. Appreciate you joining us this morning. So let's begin to just catalog your story. So just tell us a little bit about your upbringing and your background.
Okay. So when we get to the background, you want to just know like professional or?
Both personal and professional, just trying to get a understanding and grounding on just how you became Sammie Johnson, the library leader.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a small town called Warren, Ohio. It's northeast of Ohio. My parents, they were hard workers. My dad was in the Navy, retired. He did 30 years. My mom, she worked in healthcare. I had two older sisters. And I'm not going to really say education was really like the forefront of our family. It really wasn't really discussed. I just really fell in love with education. And it wasn't in high school, but it was in college. My cousin, she was we graduated at the same time. And so she was going to the University of Akron. And my aunt and my mom was like, well, if Serena's going to college, you're going to go too, and y'all going to go together. And so I ended up just going to the University of Akron because I was told to. Didn't have like really any plans at first. I was looking at Fisk University, but that didn't really pan out with my family's intentions. So started off at the University of Akron. I ended up getting involved in all different types of organizations, fraternities, civic organizations. And that's when I think I guess you would say, had the desire to serve others. And from that experience, I ended up transferring to Tuskegee University. And that was a whole, other experience. Being at an HBCU, seeing people who looked like me, people who were teaching who looked like me, people who I felt I could connect with on a deeper level. For example, if I didn't turn in an assignment, I had this professor, her name was Miss Nixon. She'd be like, Mr. Johnson, I didn't receive such and such. So it gave you the incentive not to have your name called out in class, and it showed that someone cared and it was paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I ended up majoring in social work. And I ended up working for the state for a little while. Actually, DFACS in Atlanta. Hated it. Ended up getting an opportunity in Houston at a mental health agency. Mm-hmm. Loved it. I became a trainer. One of the trainers realized some skill sets that I had, and she invited me to apply for a position they had. I did that for a little while, and then that manager was like, Sammie, you should get your master's in counseling. We think, you'll be really good. And then, there's more money, you'll get promoted. So I enrolled at Prairie View A&M University. this time because I'm in Houston. Not sure if I said that. But I ended up getting my first master's in counseling. I started working for student counseling services at Prairie View. And one thing about counseling services, or just counseling period, in order for the client to change their situation, a lot of times you have to change your environment. And for students, you can't just change your environment because so much is tied to you being at the university. Financial, parents. So if a student had a traumatic experience on campus, and with social media, it's constantly played or they're constantly reminded of that experience. So my clients would leave, or students would leave, empowered, but come back, like the session never even occurred. And so it kind of made me frustrated. And so one day I was on the elevator and I was venting to a lady named Miss Kelly. She was the curator for the library's art gallery. And she was like, I have a position and I think you would be great for it. But before you say yes, I want you to go home and think about it because it's probably less money than what you're currently making. But I think you would do well in this role. And I already knew I wanted the role. I didn't care how much it was. I was living in Prairie View. Prairie View was a very low cost of living. I was like, whatever it is, I can make it work. So I went home that morning, I think around 10 o'clock. I met her in her office, and I said, yes, I want the position. So we did the paperwork, and I became like a curator assistant in the library. But what I didn't know was she was grooming me for her position because she was leaving like the next semester. So in that short amount of time, she taught me everything I needed to know to run the art gallery, to put on exhibitions, to do the contracts, to meet with people and talk to them about wanting to do a exhibit. And so after maybe about 3 or 4 exhibits, the assistant director of the library came to me and she was like, Mr. Johnson, we'll make you a department head if you get your library science degree. And that's how everything started. I ended up getting my master's library science from Texas Women's University, and the rest was history.
Man, just appreciate you sharing just kind of that background information. I'm born and raised in Springfield, probably similar demographics to Warren. My father was ex-military corrections officer. My mother was in healthcare.
Oh, wow. 2
older siblings. So just hearing you just talk about that, myself being first generation as well. So it was just great to hear kind of, your trajectory and how you got into the role. And like a lot of people, never really thought that you would be a librarian.
Yes, I can tell you this, that a lot of people from my church, they love me, but they're so surprised to see where I'm at now because I was one of those kids. I was always inquisitive and I've always talked, and maybe adults might have said out of hand or didn't maybe know my place. And so to see, them and their smiles when I post something on Facebook is really amazing. And I know they're amazed and very proud because they let me know how proud they are. So it's very funny that I'm where I'm at right now. Absolutely.
And I also want to talk more about your background in social work. I think that's something really important to underscore. I know my department here at the Dayton Metro Library, we do peer recovery support here at definitely at the main library. We see a lot of patrons that might be trying to get on their feet, whether it's experience not having a house or a job or various different addiction. And I also worked at the University of Dayton for nearly a decade. So how are you able to, implement your social work background into your experience right now, working at Wilberforce, working with students? As we know, mental health awareness is at an all-time high, and that this day and age, younger students, including college students, are acutely aware of mental health. So how are you able to infuse that into your work now as a library director?
Okay, so not only with social work, but also have a master's in counseling and human sciences, which is marriage and family therapy. And I got those 2 degrees from Prairie View A&M University. So a lot of times students, they'll come to my office and they just like to vent. Right now, Prairie View, we have a thing called Reju or Review. I think it's called Reju. It's like an online counseling service. But sometimes students, they want that personal connection. And so I feel like I'm really blessed to be in a position that I'm in right now with our students and mental health. And students nowadays feel more comfortable discussing their mental health issues or just how they feeling. You know, I grew up with my generation. We didn't talk about our mental health issues or problems. It was just, you just dealt with it and got over it. And so I'm glad I'm in a place where I'm able to allow students a space to vent, you know, non-judgment, just talk to me. And I feel like my skill set with having the master's in counseling has really been a blessing within this situation. Just allowing students to be themselves. And when I look at library services, I always think about the student. Like, what do the student want? What type of services? For example, I used to work at Georgia State University in Clarkston. That was the Clarkston campus, which is the most diverse area in the United States. I don't remember what the square foot mileage is, but it's like the most diverse. We'll just make up a number. It's the most diverse area in 2.4 square miles or something like that.
Yeah.
But
per
anyway,
capita.
Yeah. So we had a lot of students who were Muslim, and they needed a place to pray. So I created a space for them, you know, where they felt comfortable. They could come and they could pray and not worry about somebody looking at them or taking a video of them, or, you know, they had like their own space. So I always think when I go into a space, how can we make this better for the student? You know, at Wilberforce, when I first got there, we didn't have computers. We had maybe one at the reference desk. I was able to, you know, get computers. We created a makerspace, and students are loving the area where when I first got there, it was a desert. No students. I'm like, this is a hub for learning. Like, where are the students? Even if they just come to relax and sit down, they need to be in here. And so now, you know, we're seeing a lot of students coming in, even if they just wanting to lounge. But they have the computers to do their homework. They have printing. And before, they didn't have that. So I always look at myself as a change agent, and that's from my social work background. I remember when that movie, with her movie name was Olivia Pope. I can't remember what movie that was, but she, you know, worked in D.C. and she did all the fixing for the presidents and the big time people. And I feel like on a smaller level, that's how I feel like when I go into space. To fix it, make it better for the students. And not only the students, but the faculty, they use this space as well. So I guess from me being a social worker to a counselor, we like to see ourselves as fixers anyway. And so it just transferred into library science.
Absolutely. That's what libraries are. And I'm glad that you also bring attention to that. I think people are becoming more aware that public libraries really are just community centers, right? With literacy at the center. And I'm hearing you say the same thing, that you're looking at, you know, your library on a university level as a place for resources, for connection, for safety. So why don't you also just tell people, you know, what does your role entail as the director of a library at a university setting in general, and then more specifically, what's unique about you running a library at a HBCU both the opportunities and the unique assets as well as challenges that come with that.
Oh, we're going to have to break that down. That's so much. My mind is not going to remember all of that. But I think the most important thing, I think, is within working at an HBCU library as a director is making sure that you constantly advocate for the services that you need for your students, and staying up to date with technology. I think when students leave Wilberforce and they go on to the workforce, like, they have to know what Excel is. They have to know what Microsoft Office is. And now we're moving into AI. So they have to know what these AI tools are. And, like, I'm a component of them. I don't say don't use them. What I say is use them in an ethical way. Mm-hmm. So don't use it to write your paper. Use it to get some ideas. Then you go to the database and you find articles that align with what you research or looked up through, say, ChatGPT, mm-hmm. and you use it, like I said, in an ethical way. Mm-hmm. So I think as my role, it's important to let students know, like, these tools are good, but this is how you use them. Mm-hmm. Before I became a library director, I was an information literacy coordinator librarian, and that dealt really with teaching students on how to do research. And this is before, like, AI came out. I was the vice chair, ended up being the chair for the Information Literacy Standards Committee with ALA, the American Library Association. And so, part of ACRL. But, or ACRL is a part of ALA. So, it's just really important to let students know that if they're going to use these tools, how to use them. I think in my career, I've always been someone to want to see others advance. So I've always been like a mentor to other librarians, and not only librarians, but library assistants. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, if you come in as a library assistant, I want to know, like, what is your expectations? Because I don't expect a library assistant to stay a library assistant for 10, 15, 20 years. Mm-hmm. Like, what is your goal and how can I help you get there? Is it, if you're going to stay in a library for that amount of time, you might as well just go ahead and get the MLS and be a librarian so you can make more money and just increase your options. Mm-hmm. And then if you want to go out and go to another place of employment, that's good. I just felt like, that's another person who I added to the field. I helped. Hit me with another part of your question.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic, and we'll circle back on to that mentoring aspect. Second part of the question is, what's unique specifically about being a library director at an HBCU? Why is that important to you? Why does it matter? And then what are some of the unique experience that you're able to have being specifically situated on an HBCU, as well as what are some of the challenges that come with that?
Okay. So I worked at Texas A&M and Georgia State. And I think the uniqueness of working at an HBCU is the connectedness that you have with your students. It's a different level of mentorship. It's a different level of just knowing a student, knowing that someone looks like me and they're here to help. A lot of times students, African-American students, or I think any type of student, rarely see a black librarian mm-hmm. or a black male librarian. Mm-hmm. So just showing them that there are other options out there as far as career-wise. And once you get into, like, your administrative roles, the pay is really, it's pretty great. Mm-hmm. Even at, your first probably position will pay well in academia. Mm-hmm. And when I say well, I say most academic libraries for a entry-level position pay probably between $50,000 and $60,000. Mm-hmm. And so if, a person coming out of college with no real bills or, family or anything like that, 55, 60,000, that's pretty good. And then if they want to, I think it's easier to, not easier, but there's ways to move up. If that's what you want, where you could, gain the extra money. Then it depends on what type of library you're working for. Because if you're a faculty role, and then 3 to 5 years, that's going to be a guaranteed increase because it's you're going to go up for faculty promotion. So I think looking at students in an HBC perspective, I think just being there is a lot. Just them seeing you coming in, seeing you work, just having them experience that experience of seeing a black male librarian is something that we really shouldn't take for granted.
Absolutely, amen to that. As we know that we're just black men only represent 1% of professional librarians. So, just appreciate you just, blazing that path and continue to mentor and bring others along and bring others within the profession as you continue to progress within your own career and having an impact. I want to know if you can also talk about, you talked about librarians being faculty within the university setting. And I know at some university, they also have tenure and promotion opportunities. So that might be something that's new to our listeners and viewers that they might not be familiar with. So how does that tenure and promotion aspect work at some of the higher education institutions?
Okay. So it can be different depending on your university. But normally you go, so you're usually your first 3 to 5 years if you come in as an assistant. So usually it's a librarian, assistant librarian, associate librarian, and librarian. That's like full librarian, what you would call tenured. So at your assistant level, you're probably, depending on what the contract is, but normally you have to be involved in some type of university committee. You have to be involved in a committee within your profession. So like say the ALA or ACRL, or maybe within that state, like the Ohio Public Library, maybe, even though it's public, but, and you have to publish. So you have to write an article. It has to be a scholarly article, submitted to probably like a top tier journal. So what else? Oh, and you have to do community service, which would be like your could be serving on a university committee. So that's really about it, moving to the next stage. And then each stage requires maybe more. So maybe instead of doing 1 or 2 articles, they're requiring 4 articles. They might require a little bit more committee time work, or it really depends on the university. But that's how you move up. You constantly want to be involved in your professional organizations. And you have to present. I forgot about that part. You also want to present at a conference as well. So either doing like a poster board presentation, or doing like a conference type of setting where you're sitting on a panel discussion. But you want to immerse yourself within the librarian field, within research, networking with other librarians, seeing what the latest, hot topics are. Right now is AI. Yep. You always have the digital divide, hitting on those areas and seeing, what vulnerable populations that they're affecting. Because, we definitely want to talk about that. And especially with what's going on with the administration today and how things are changing so drastically, it's impacting libraries, So that's when you're looking at your tenure process or moving through the ranks of tenure. That's what you want to look at. Right now, I'm in a staff position, so I don't have to worry about that as much. But I still like to go to conferences because you have to stay connected to the field. You have to continue to network. You have to know what's going on so that I can, when I come back to, my campus, I can provide the latest updates and try to get the latest technology and to help our students grow.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you just kind of talking about just staying abreast of what's happening in the field. And you talked about just how quickly the library landscape is changing given the social, political climate. For you right now, I know that you've expressed just how you love bringing in those resources and being a connector and problem solver for your students and advocating for the resources that they need. What would you say is the most challenging as well as rewarding aspects of your role?
Okay, I think the most challenging thing is, I would say, the financial part. Not having enough and not having, what you need to do the things that you want to do. That's the most challenging. Human capital is another challenging part because you need people to get things accomplished. You need a team. You can't just do everything in silo and on your own. And Wilberforce is one of those schools where we do not have, like the budget of a larger institution. So it caused me to be, I guess you would say, creative, networking with other departments, leaning on my neighbors to get things accomplished. The most rewarding thing is I love my students, is being able to provide a service or finding a service or connecting students to other resources that they need to be successful. That's the most rewarding. And then having a student maybe a year or 2 or 5 down the road to find you on social media or find your email and, shoot you an email and say, hey, Mr. Johnson, thank you. This really worked out. Like, for example, like I'm still connected with my students from Alabama A&M, especially like my student workers that are in grad school. One of my students went to grad school, got married. Now they're expecting their first child. I went to the wedding. And so those connections is what I enjoy. That's what I enjoy about being a librarian is connecting beyond the library walls and establishing long-lasting connections with my students. Who knows? The student that I'm talking about now, I may have his daughter in one of my libraries working, so you just never know. And I think that's what is one of the things I like most, and one of the most, I guess, situations or a part of my career that I enjoy the most.
And it's so important that you just kind of share those stories, when we move with calling and with purpose. We're usually the biggest beneficiaries of that. When a student or a patron reaches back out and say, hey, this program or this service, or you just being there and being available really helped change my life or helped me navigate a particular situation or period or time in my life. And you've also talked about just how representation also matters within this field. So wondering if you can also speak to some of the unique challenges that Black men face within academic libraries, as well as what are some ways that we can create a pipeline for Black men within libraries?
Well, I think one of the challenges, when I was working at some of my predominantly white institutions, I felt like people wanted me to prove myself. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I got the job. I got the credentials. Like, this is the wrong person. No. Like, I'm just not that person that's going to cater to you because you feel a certain type of way that I'm in this position. So I think sometimes people don't know how to navigate those situations. And I'm the type of person, I'm like, I don't care. Whatever you think, you just need to make sure that you're providing the services that your contract says you need to provide. And we're going to be good. But I think, though, that is some of the situations that that comes along with probably just being a black person in libraries because it's predominantly white women. And so working in HBCUs, I haven't had, that experience. But what I have had was older black librarians, like, who is this young person coming in here telling me what to do, until they get to know me and they're like, oh, he's not bad, but those have been my experiences. But usually I'm able to navigate because my personality, once you get to know me, when you look at me, you might think I'm mean or I don't talk or standoffish. But I'm really observant at first. And I think that just comes from my social work background. I like to just case the situation and kind of understand what I'm getting into before I speak. I really don't like to speak out of hand and before I understand the full situation. What was the second part to that?
Oh man, I was just so immersed in your storytelling there. I forgot the second part if there was one. Just having an organic conversation here. I love this. But as we begin to close the chapter on cataloging your journey, if you could, what would the future of black men in librarianship look like?
The future, I would say definitely more of us. And that's a good question. So I guess what would I want to see for black male librarians? Where it's normalized to be a black male librarian, where when you say it, it's not like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I would definitely like to see us with a network and a conference where we can network and, share not only our stories, but job possibilities and more mentorship within the field. Because I think with black male librarians, just as a male growing up with a single parent household, they don't have a male to look up to. And I think with black male librarians, you have a lot of women to look up to. But what would that look like if you had a strong black male in your life to mentor you within the profession? How would your career change? How would it be different? Or would it be different? That's research. That's a research question that maybe need to be explored.
Absolutely.
But I would say more mentorship within black male librarians.
Man, you really hit the nail on the head there in terms of cultivating mentorships to improve pipeline, because it's one thing to get black men in the profession. It's another thing to keep us in the profession and continuously progress and advance us within a career. Love the idea about connecting, networking, a conference. So maybe we can talk about that some more offline. But as we close this chapter, is there anything else that you would like to share that you haven't been able to share yet?
Well, yeah, it's connected to the question you just asked me, because I haven't seen Bradley's interview, but I'm not sure if he mentioned Jerome Alford, Dr. Alford. And I know that he was a mentor to Bradley, and he cultivated a group of black guys and helped them get through library science school. So if there was a program like the one that Jerome had started that someone could pick up, and maybe a school, could pick up and begin where we're intentionally recruiting African American males that may not know about library science, that may, want to know more or be in a profession. I think that is, when you think about like that pipeline into libraries, that would be a excellent starting point.
This was phenomenal. Truly appreciate you sharing that. How can people connect with you and follow your work?
Okay, well, I would say go to LinkedIn, because I keep my my Facebook is not my professional side. It's my family and my friends who've known me ever since I was younger.
Yep.
But on a professional level, you can reach me on LinkedIn. I believe it's Sammie Johnson, Sammie Johnson, and just put in Wilberforce.
Yep.
Or you could put in Howard. It should come up.
Definitely appreciate that. Podcast family, that was another episode of Cataloging the Culture. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Karlos L. Marshall. We appreciate Brother Sammie for just sharing his experiences, and we're going to continue to keep this going one story at a time, even amidst the various elements here, from HVAC systems to grass mowing. You're getting a real public library experience here. And again, this was just another testimony to show that black men in libraries, we also don't come from a singular experience, nor do we come from a monolithic background. So again, until the next time, see you soon.